All right, everybody. Welcome to episode 100 of the Inglorious Bastards campaign. With me tonight, I am lucky enough to have my almost the full cast of Rise of the Mormegil. Welcome, everybody.
Thanks.
Hey, how's it
Hello.
going?
Hello. Hi.
All right, so we have MJ here
Hello.
who played Azelandor. We have Marco who played Faradir, of course. We have his brother Max who played Tessero. We have Spriggs who played Burin, and we had Josh who played Riken. So, guys, it hasn't been that long since we did the last full cast reunion. I like to start these things by giving you guys some factoids, some dates. So we started the first part of the campaign, the search for Tol Eressëa, back on June 11th, 2017. Which is insane. I don't know why I decided to start a massive campaign like 10 days after I had my third child. That seems like maybe that was ill-fated. But we ended that in August of 2017, and we took a good probably almost 6 months off. We started Rise of the Mormegil in January of 2018, and ended it in March of 2018. So we went about 2 months, maybe like 2 months and a week, and then we only took like a couple weeks off, and we started right in on Trials of the Valar, and which went for a couple of about 10 weeks in April, May, and I think maybe even through June. So we're recording this about 2 years, almost to the day that we started Rise of the Mormegil. So isn't that crazy?
That's pretty crazy. Yeah, that is definitely crazy.
So
This thing's got legs.
yeah, man. Well, I'm still in the thick of this. Recording these. I'm about 2/3 of the way done, and this thing has kind of taken on a life of its own. We obviously I've done some amazing interviews. This will be the last episode. This will be episode 100 in Rise of the Mormegil, and to kick off Trials of the Valar, we have the Tolkien scholar. Verlin Flieger is going to come talk to us. I have the artist Ted Naismith that's going to come talk to us. The Tolkien scholar Dimitra Fimi. I think we're going to do some fan interviews, and of course, I've got my live UK trip that I'm going to go and visit some Tolkien sites.
Oh yeah,
but obviously, yeah, man.
I did not hear about
yeah,
that.
I don't know if we talked about that. Yeah, so I'm heading in March. I'm heading to Oxford, Birmingham, Warwick, and the Cheddar Gorge, and hit some Tolkien sites. Yeah.
Wow.
So those will start airing in sort of late April 2020.
Oh, that's awesome.
But that's not why we're here tonight. That's just to give the listener a little preview. I have a few questions for you all. We obviously have just the listener has, if they're going in order, they have just finished Rise of the Mormegil, which is where your characters started at the Tower of Avalone, traveled through the Land of Elms, went to the Cottage of Lost Play, to the House of 100 Chimneys, to Tavro Bell, which we affectionately called Taco Bell. They met Ase, got on a ship, went to the Tower of Pearl, traveled to Talbur, to the Stone of the Hapless, came back, went to Alqualunde, met the King of the Teleri, had a sea battle, went to the workshop of Aule, discovered Turin Turambar was the Man in Black, battled him in the Calicaria, and that's kind of where the listener is now. The last thing that the listener has heard is that the Caves of the Forgotten have opened up. So that was like an overview. If you guys haven't been sort of following along with the podcast, but I am curious. Since the last time we've talked, which has been about 6 months, we talked last July, in July of 2019. I was curious, and we can just go down the list. If have you guys been playing any more D&D since this Lord of the Rings campaign?
You know it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
what about Spriggs? Have you been doing any D&D?
No, haven't been playing any. I did run a very short game with some friends of mine that have never played before. And then As you know, I've been doing a lot of like theory crafting on creating like different worlds for D&D to be set in. So I've been doing that like in my free time, but that's really the only D&D that I've.
You missing playing?
Yeah, yeah, I do. I do
Yeah.
miss playing, especially with you as DM, just because there's so much story behind it.
Oh, I miss. Yeah, I mean, I'm in the thick of a Symbian revival campaign now, which is taking the other half of my creative brain. But so that's fun. I'm looking forward to what's next, though.
Well, then that means I definitely lied because I did play the one session in the Symbia,
Oh
uh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, campaign for you guys.
And Josh, what about you?
Yeah, I've actually been playing a ton of D&D. Really, I play with a group of people that we try to play like once a month, and we're on our third part of this huge campaign that we've done, which actually has been kind of interesting because I started DMing the first and second parts, and then at the third part we handed it off to a different DM, and he kind of just took the story whatever direction he wanted to go. And we've been playing for like 2.5 years now. We started I think just before this campaign started, and we've been playing like once a month or maybe twice a month since then. It's been pretty fun.
And you guys do the in-person session, is that right?
Yeah, we do in-person sessions, and they
Yeah.
get a little bit silly.
So that's something I miss. I wish we were able to be in person more often for
Yeah.
these.
Yeah, but I can tell you after trying to edit these the sessions we recorded when everybody's in the same room, it was just like a shit show. There's
Yeah.
just so people are ordering pizza and dishes are clanking and it's like dogs are barking. I think at one point I had to edit the files because at one point I gave out my credit card to the person I was ordering the pizza from on the phone.
That's hilarious.
Some high production value.
Yeah. So MJ, what about you? Have you played anything or?
I have not. No, you boys were my first time.
Oh,
I didn't.
Oh, how precious.
So let me go to the next question. Have you guys, since we played in the last couple of years here, have you picked Tolkien up, like as far as the movies or the books go? Have you guys like experimented a little more, like maybe picked up the Silmarillion or anything like that?
I read the Hobbit when I think I was in high school, and I just picked it up and was starting to read it to my son. He's 6. And he absolutely loves it. So,
Oh wow!
like I said, I've seen the movies, but like all a lot of the nuance of the story and stuff like that, I had forgotten. So,
Well, I just started. I just finished The Hobbit with my 8-year-old daughter, and she liked it so much. 'Cause I was reading it to her, and she liked it so much that she actually started reading it out again, like immediately. And
That's
now
cool.
I'm actually reading her The Fellowship, which requires,
that's
it requires a lot more like hand holding in some ways, you know.
I think I was the other sort of token nut of the bunch. I've already read the Silmarillion. After that campaign, I'll be honest with you, I needed a little bit of a break from the token stuff.
Oh yeah.
But now I'm just finding out now, because we had talked before the podcast started, but that there's a series coming out on Prime for the Second Age, and I'm getting all excited for that now.
You just found out like 5 minutes ago, right?
Yeah, no kidding. 5 minutes ago.
Oh man. Yeah, I'm excited for that. So Lord of the Rings on Prime has 5 seasons that it's going to do. So there's speculation of, people are really like looking at the maps and trying to decide at what point in the Second Age it's going to fall. I have my ideas. I think it'll either be, it'll follow the voyages of Aldarion. Or it'll be like right around the time that the rings are forged. Those are the 2 leading contenders, I think. All right. Well, let me go on to the next question here. So those parts of Rise of the Mormegil that I mentioned, do you guys have any of like your favorite parts?
The ship battle was a lot of fun.
The ship battle. Which one? Which one was that?
The one that had the enormous like octopus with its tentacles stretched out all over the boat.
Oh yeah, yep. Yeah, that so Josh and I talked a little bit about that. I think Josh is having some audio problems, so he had to bail. But yeah, we talked a little bit about that and about how he just loves to do crazy stuff, and I think that really came out in that episode.
Yeah, for sure.
But that leads me to kind of my next question. I think Spriggs and I talked about this, and I realized that I possibly could have some sort of Japanese tentacle fetish. Because
Yeah.
well, I'm looking back at these. Think about how many tentacle monsters we had. We had the creature in the well. We had the Watcher at Tharbad. We had I think you guys were traveling through the land of elms, and there was like a worm creature, which you could argue is a tentacle monster. There was on the way to the Twilight Isles, right, where you have the one that Spriggs just mentioned, right? Was there another one? I feel like there might have been another one.
Oh man, that's funny.
All right. Well, can I ask this question? Maybe we haven't heard much from Max, and I just finished re-listening to an episode where you guys had to decide whether you're going to go ride your horse. It was just after you fought Tarminoth, so whether you're going to go straight down and kind of skirt the Fangorn forest, or whether you're going to cut through Fangorn. And I know that Max was really bummed out. And I think he's muted now, but I think he was really bummed out that you guys didn't end up going through Fangorn. So I guess my question would be, were there any parts of the world that you would have liked to have played through?
I'm trying to think if there was any place that I was really interested in going that we didn't go, because like I wasn't familiar.
We can go to. Did we go to Angband?
Angband?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
You did.
All right.
But that's something that the listener has to look forward to in part 3.
I guess I wasn't familiar that much with Amon, so I didn't really know where we could and couldn't go.
Yeah. Well, some of it I remember early on. I gave you guys a few choices, like, hey, do you go left or you go right? And if you go left, you fight these dragons. If you go right, this happens. And so we kind of had to, introduce that choice. That's super important, I think.
Right.
All right. Well, now I'm going to pick on Byrne a little bit. So Spriggs, one of the last things that Byrne had a vision right at the very end of the last episode, where he saw a strong dwarf with a burning flame above his head, and then you saw an obelisk, and it cut to black, and you knew well enough that this was somehow related back to Durin, kind of the forefathers of all the dwarves. Did you have any idea where that was going?
Zero. Had no idea. Because you and I had fleshed out the backstory from the get-go, and I still thought that's what was happening. And then when I had the vision, it kind of threw me off guard because it didn't make sense. But it does later on.
So you have that to look for, everybody.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's pick on Marco now. So Marco, at the very end of this fight, Anguarel is destroyed, and you as the ground starts to vibrate and the sky goes even darker, you are on the battlefield picking up the shards of Girthang and Anguarel. Did you have any idea what was going to happen after this?
I was gonna reforge the shit out of that sword. I was waiting. It took a while. I'm not gonna lie. It took a while, but when it comes back, it's worth it.
Oh, okay. So So there you go, listener. Now we know that Faradir reforges his sword in a way. In a way, reforges it. Well, let's pick on Max a little bit now with Tessero. So
Yes,
so
he is.
your character is slowly turning into a tree. Did you think that Amon was going to be your last stop as a player? Did you think you were going to get this cloak off, or what were your thoughts at this point in the campaign?
Honestly, I don't really. I was just kind of going with it. I mean, I kind of had a feeling you probably weren't gonna full on turn me into a tree and then make a new character. So, I don't know. I was just going with it. I liked it though. I liked it as like it brought the character in a whole different direction, which is really cool when something like that happens in
Yep.
this game.
You did. You totally reskinned your character in the second part of
Yeah.
the campaign. So some of the new characters stuck with us through part three. I believe MJ, you stuck with us as Elendor was with us to the end. Morloman was with us to the end, and of course, Faradir and Tessero were with us to the end. Burren was with us, but was played by a different player, who we'll meet in a few episodes. Riken as a character has to, and we'll find this out as well, has to. His character has just seen so much damage from the shadow after 60 years in the portal, and the smoke that was coming out of his lungs were turned into evil breath at the end of the fight, and. So he actually takes the Silmaril and kind of watches over the Silmaril at Tyrion, and is nursed back to health by the Noldor. And so we'll see him again, and Josh will come back into this again, but not until the very end of part three. If I could, I want to read to you the thing that. The thing that we ended with was the Kalakiria, the Caves of the Forgotten opening, and the sort of the dead Numenorians filing out, preparing for battle, and they were chanting, "We storm this land for the King of Men, to claim the right of our firstborn kin. Vengeance now for the land they rend. Thralls no more to the lords we tend." And so you guys knew you were starting part three right away in battle. And I don't believe you guys got to take a rest. So can you remember what you were thinking at this point?
I wasn't there, so I'm not sure what I would have been thinking. But it sounds terrible.
It was all new to me, so I wasn't, I didn't know what I didn't know. So if there was something that was bad or dangerous, or I was on the adventure just the same as everyone else, I guess. But I guess all new to me.
I think Faradir was disheartened by the Numenorians coming out of their graves, but I think Marco thought it was super cool.
Yeah. Well, guys, do you think like if you were to pick up the Silmarillion or any of the histories of Middle Earth now, if they were talking about geography, do you think after having played this campaign, would it help? Would it hurt? Like what are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's one thing that I didn't get to answer earlier when you asked it, but I haven't read anything new Tolkien wise, but if I go back and watch Hobbit or Lord of the Rings movies, I catch things that I wouldn't catch before I played the campaign. Just like little nuances and like mentionings of places. I'm like, oh shit, we were there. That's cool. And or like, oh yeah, that really did happen, huh? That's interesting. And I think that's really cool because it makes it feel more real, like that we were actually playing a part of Tolkien history.
Yeah, definitely. And we only scratched the surface. I mean, Corey Olson, when I interviewed him, he's the Tolkien professor. He mentioned something like, I think his phrase was that I don't really think some people know how deep this hole goes, right? And when he said that, like I was like, oh yeah, I totally get it. But 50 episodes later, like I can tell you after interviewing these people, I had no idea how deep this well goes. I'm reading. Go ahead, MJ. What were you gonna say?
So I was just going to ask, like, in designing the campaign, when you looked at it, was, and having done this history since then, looking back, is there anything, without giving anything away about where we go or don't go, is there anything, at least in that first part there, that you would have added or done differently in designing the experience?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I made a lot of mistakes.
I mean, just like telling the story, or like places that you wish we went.
Well, the naming of things we've talked about,
Durin's Stone.
Yeah, the Durin Stone. I wouldn't have called the Durin Stone because there is a Durin Stone. The like Helagrod was a name that I borrowed from Lord of the Rings Online. Was in the wrong place, and I should have called it like the Fane of Durin, like I did in the podcast when I edited.
When
Um,
you say it was in the wrong place, what do you mean?
well, Helagrod was in the Misty Mountains in Lord of the Rings Online, I believe, and it's up. It's a little more southernly than where you guys were out of the Misty Mountains and near Gundabad when you discovered the tomb of not the tomb the shrine of Durin, what I call the Fane of Durin in the podcast. So I would have changed that. I probably wouldn't have involved the Blue Wizards at all. I thought I was going to do something with them, and then I didn't end up doing it. So I wouldn't have brought Alatar into Erebor. I wouldn't have had Pterodon's Barrow be in the Barrow Downs. I think it would have made more sense for Pterodon to be buried in Orthanc or somewhere around there. Yeah, lots of things, man. Really lots of things. And what about you guys? Did you guys discover anything along the way that you thought was lame or like? Oh,
I just want to say at first, at the same time, like, you know, um, just being able to put yourself out there and just create this story, willing to make mistakes. Like,
Mm-hmm.
otherwise, this whole thing wouldn't have happened, right? So
yeah, yeah. Well, it's cool because the community is actually a really small and supportive community, and people are chiming in on YouTube and like I had somebody from Norway that contacted me and was like, I look forward to every episode, like, and that makes you feel good, because I put a lot of I put a lot of time in editing,
Well,
not
yeah.
just preparing the obviously the campaign, but in editing and putting the stuff out there and making it look nice. And it's been I just hadn't, like, I'm interfacing with people that are so smart and so knowledgeable about these things. I get to meet them, a lot of them, right? Like I get to learn from them. I didn't even know that I enjoyed interviewing people. And this when I'm interviewing five other people, this is not a good example, but like when you're in a one-on-one interview with somebody and you don't have to be the expert. You just ask them about the thing that they're passionate about, and they can go on and on and on. And some of my interviews have been in an hour and a half that I have to sort of cut down. So it's people probably think it's silly that I'm still kind of in this campaign that we did 2 years ago, but I tell you, it's been awesome. It's been really great,
So,
and I want to thank you guys for that.
oh, of course, it was a blast. But I had a question. So, like, out of all the people that you've interviewed, what is like the most interesting thing that you've learned?
Well, I think I have to say that I'm just truly indebted to Corey Olson, who was the first one to agree to be on the podcast. And he, for years, I would say since 2007, he started. He didn't start in full force until I think 2009, but like he started recording in 2007. And he's the Tolkien professor, and he's really created through his university and his Mythgard Institute. He's interviewed, just like, I'm like, oh, I'm going to interview this person. This is great. I bet they've never done an interview, and I look, and Corey's interviewed them, and like and Corey's like giving me people's contact information and like just been a great resource. And I think like almost like gave me legitimacy when I've been like, oh yeah, I interviewed that guy, or they've been like, oh, he interviewed Corey. I guess maybe I should come on his podcast. Like, I'm truly indebted to him, and he's just a really good guy. As far as like the most interesting, I think when I have to tie everything back to the campaign, right, to make it relevant. But I think. The language conversations were really interesting. I think the interview that I did the best job at was, and I was working on it for a year, kind of preparing for it and talking with this family. I got a chance to talk with the son of Karen Wynne Fonstad. She did the Atlas of Middle Earth, and she passed away, unfortunately, but I got a chance to email back and forth with her son and her husband, and they were great. They're good people, also super knowledgeable. And I just had that interview. It just went live last week, and so the interview with Mark Fonstad was really fun and interesting, and really heartfelt. So everyone's different, man.
Gotcha.
Well, all right, well, guys, I think that's all. I will just ask one more thing in case there's anything burning as like a preview of things to come in part 3. This is called Trials of the Valar. Is there anything that the listeners should be prepared for in part 3 that you remember?
I already gave my
Tricky
spoiler,
question.
so
All right. Max or MJ, anything you?
His Elendor is gonna get an item, something that's gonna be useful to memorable to him and useful for the campaign, something that's very special, and your listeners can try to maybe start guessing of what type of what is it he's going to be receiving.
Well, I will take this one step farther and say if they
Oh.
go to longwinded.one and they look at a picture of your token under Rise of the Mormegil or under Trials of the Valar, they will see a picture of you, and that item is in the picture.
I like that. That's pretty good.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Well, guys, thank you. Thank you. And I will. I'll see some of you in part of the campaign we're doing now, but hopefully I can have you back in another 6 months or so when we do the final reunion. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Sounds good, man.
All right. Take it easy, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
thanks.